Hi, I'm really hoping that you are safe and doing well. If you have just followed me through my previous video in which I have discussed the true concept of Agile, and then under the umbrella of Agile, there are a lot of methodologies and frameworks that actually exist. And out of those wide variety of methodologies and frameworks, the most predominant and popular framework that is being exercised by millions of project managers and variety of organizations since decades, and even it's being exercised by now, is the Scrum framework. And then we also saw the three foundational values of Scrum, which is transparency, inspection, and then adaptation. So today's video is actually the expansion of the previous video, and in today's video we'll actually see the entire Scrum framework in its minute details, all the building blocks of that Scrum framework. So after watching this video, you'll get to know all the foundational knowledge you actually need to know about the Scrum framework. So without any delay, let's just get started. This is the entire Scrum framework. So this is actually a pictorial view of the Scrum framework. I've taken this picture from a book that actually belongs to Scrum framework. So in order to make our understanding a bit better, let's just break it down, the Scrum framework, into small and more manageable bits and pieces. So it'll help us in having a better understanding of the Scrum framework. There are certain rules that are generally applied to Scrum sprints. So during the sprint, you do not make any changes that eventually affect the goal of the sprint, and that's rule number one. Rule number two says that a sprint may be cancelled if there is a change in the goal of the overall project that makes the goal of the sprint obsolete. In that case, an entire sprint can be cancelled. So, and rule number three says that sprint can only be cancelled by the product owner, because the product owner is the only entity that has the authority to cancel the sprint. The Scrum framework has actually 5 ceremonies, and the first ceremony is known as product backlog refinement. This is the phase where the product owner is gathering requirements from executives, team, project stakeholders, customers, end users, from the team, other teams as well. So the product owner actually gathers requirements from different stakeholders and create a backlog, which is known as a product backlog. A product backlog is basically an prioritized list of ordered items, which means that all the requirements has been gathered from different stakeholders, and then they are actually prioritized, and then they are ranked based on that prioritization, and this is done by the product owner. So product owner is basically a liaison, a person who is an interacting between the stakeholders and taking requirements from the stakeholders and then translate that high level requirements to the team. So he's somebody who's having a business background, who can actually understand the higher level requirements from the business and then can translate those requirements to the team. So that is a product owner. So the ultimate job of the product owner is to maintain the whole product backlog throughout the project with his team. And the product backlog is actually the entire set of requirements that has been gathered from different stakeholders that belong to the project. And then all the requirements has been ranked based on their prioritization. And that's the product backlog. The second ceremony of the Scrum framework is known as sprint planning meeting. This is the meeting where the product owner and his team sits together and decide how much work they are going to accomplish in their current sprint. And then the product owner and team also determine that what would be the goals of their current sprint. So the team and the product owner then choose that what work they are going to accomplish from the product backlog. Then the product owner will eventually update the product backlog, and the work item that has been taken from the current work product backlog will become the sprint backlog. and the team then also decide that how they are going to accomplish their work, because the team in Scrum is a self-organizing team. So self-organizing team means that the team is having the capacity to organize their work without having a directive from the above, and that's the fundamental concept of the Scrum framework. As I mentioned before, that the duration of the Scrum sprints are generally lasted from 1 to 4 weeks, and that's just a standard practice of Scrum framework sprints. The third and the most popular Scrum ceremony is known as daily Scrum meeting. So the daily Scrum meeting is conducted every 24 hours throughout the sprint. So the daily Scrum meeting is principally designed for the team only. And here comes one very important role from the Scrum framework that you need to be familiar with, is the Scrum Master. So the Scrum Master is somebody who is communicating the Scrum methodology to the team. Further, he is somebody who's actually ensuring that the proper Scrum methodology is being used by the team. So further to explain the Scrum Master's role, so he is somebody who's actually helping the team and shielding the team from internal and external interruptions, helping the team, mentoring the team, coaching the team, and further assisting the team in achieving their sprint goals. So during the sprint, the Scrum Master usually asks 3 questions to each of the team: that what is somebody, the team member, what I have completed yesterday, what I'm going to plan today, and are there any impediments in your way? So these are the 3 questions that are being asked through every sprint after every 24 hours. And then the team also shows burn down chart to track their progress. So burn down chart is actually a chart in which the team shows that how many items they have actually burned down, which means that how many work items they have completed from the sprint backlog and how many items are actually left. And one most important thing about the daily Scrum, the sprint, is that during the sprint you do not make any changes that actually affect the goal of the sprint, and that's very important rule of the sprint. And just for your information, that the daily Scrum meeting is also referred to as daily stand-up meeting. As fourth ceremony of the Scrum framework is also known as sprint review. So this is the meeting that has been hosted at the end of each sprint. So at the end of each sprint, the team actually accomplish their work and they create something that is known as an increment. So the attendees of this meeting is the team themselves, the Scrum Master, product owner, and most of the time the project stakeholders. So in this meeting, the team actually demonstrates the increment they have produced, and the rest of the stakeholders and the product owner, they actually inspect that the definition of done can be achieved or not. So for your understanding, what is the definition of done? So definition of done is a common criteria among the team in which the stakeholders actually inspect the product that the team has created with the original requirements, and acceptance and denials had been made based on that inspection. And this is known as the definition of done. So once the definition of done has been made, which means that the stakeholders have accepted that the increment has been produced with and that increment is actually conforming with the requirements, so the product owner actually updates the product backlog, and the team, product owner, Scrum Master, and rest of the stakeholder themselves discuss the upcoming product items, product backlog items that needs to be taken for the next sprint. So the fifth and the last Scrum ceremony is known as sprint retrospective. So this is a meeting that is being hosted at the end of the sprint review meeting and right before the next sprint planning meeting. So this is the meeting where the team actually inspect and adapt. lesson learned has been made, and the team actually self-actualize, internalize that what are the mistakes they have done for the last sprint, what are the good things they have done, what are the areas actually which need improvement, and they also take feedback from the product owners, and they also look at the behaviors about the last sprint, the last sprint's experience, which areas they actually improve, which are the areas they are at the optimum level. So again, the whole idea of the sprint retrospective is the team to actually self-actualize and make continuous improvement for the next sprint. And that's the ultimate goal of the sprint retrospective. So let us now look at the big picture and see the Scrum framework as a whole and try and build our understanding. Again, so it's the product owner who's initially taking inputs from different executives, teams, stakeholders, customers, end users, and try and build a product backlog. And trying and building product backlog with his team, and then the product owner and the team sits together in the sprint planning meeting and decide what are the work items they are going to attack in their first sprint, and that items become the sprint backlog. And then once the sprint has been started, every 24 hours a daily scrum has been conducted in which 3 questions has been asked. What did you do yesterday? What are you going to plan today? And are there impediments in your way? And then the team also shows burn down charts. And after that, a sprint review meeting has been conducted in which team has accomplished their work, and as a result an increment has been produced, and the team is actually demonstrating that increment, and the rest of the stakeholders are actually inspecting that the definition of done has been achieved or not. And after the sprint review meeting and right before the next sprint planning meeting, a sprint retrospective has been held in which the team is actually inspecting and adapting about their behavior, and lesson learned have been made, and continuous improvement is being made based on their experience with the last sprint. And that's just the whole Scrum framework. So with this, we have now reached to the end of this video, and I'm really hoping that now you have a better foundational understanding about the Scrum framework, and most importantly, its foundational building blocks. So tell me about how do you think about the Scrum framework, and how I can actually improve the level of my content, the level of my delivery. And if you just like this content, please hit the subscribe button just right the top of this video, and put your comments in the comment section area, and I'll surely get back to you with the best of my knowledge. So for the next video, till then, bye bye.